some really good stuff, and who we know we are and what we feel like we can be able to do, and then just self-inflicted wounds. A ton of penalties tonight. We just got to get better overall, and so we had a lot of out there, that I know our guys, we watched the tape on the sideline. We missed some stuff that we got to have, and I think they're game-changing plays that we just didn't execute properly, and if we do those, especially going right before halftime, who knows what that game looks like.
What kind of led to the struggles in the second half? You guys were in the lead, and then all of a sudden it seemed like FIU had a new breath of life out of nowhere. What kind of led to that?
Yeah, they came out firing, and then we got to answer on offense. We just didn't. We got in the third, we got in the third long too much. That was one of our keys to victory this week, to stay ahead of the sticks, and we weren't ahead of the sticks. So again, it starts with me getting us into a better first down play call, and then our guys executing the first down calls to stay in those second, manageable, third manageables versus the 3rd and 12s. We felt like we found ourselves in a lot, in that third quarter.
And Coach, I wanted to get the thoughts on your first Shula Bowl, being in the atmosphere. What was that like for you, being able to coach in that?
Yeah, great atmosphere out here. Rowdy fan base on both sides, that brought a lot of juice.
Coach Keyshawn Owens was running all over the place.
Yeah.
Really good show.
Yeah.
How are we going to be able to attack the run game?
Yeah, we gotta find out, what calls are best against a guy like this. I felt like we were, especially early in the game, we were doing a really good job of stopping the run, but we couldn't stop the quarterback pulling the ball and making the plays. And so that's where we've got to be a lot better. That's always the tricky part. Whenever you're playing a running quarterback, and you got them in the 3rd and long one time, and you have a quarterback spy in, and then the quarterback's guy runs out of his gap, and he takes off for 25 yards for first down. And so it's just, again, the small details of doing our job and getting better there. But that's something that we're, again, we got 2 weeks to get back to the drawing board and look at what we want to do. We got to be ready to play a quarterback that can move around with his legs and make stuff shake with his leg. We got to be a lot better there.
You talked week 1 how receivers are running to the depth of their routes. And it seemed like there was some miscommunications going on, especially in the second half. How do you fix that and kind of get guys to just know where their place is supposed to be in the routes?
Yeah, again, we're freelancing at times at wide receiver. We got to be better. It comes down to the detail of the route. What's the route supposed to be? What's the depth supposed to be? Where am I supposed to go? The same thing on the last interception, and we're trying to throw up a Hail Mary type situation, but the receiver doesn't run the ball where the quarterback's throwing the ball. So that's a Caden Easton situation too, which is even more frustrating. So again, I've got to be better. Coach McCarthy's got to help get those guys better. And then at the end of the day, we know what we're running. We know the play call. We got to execute the play call. That's the frustrating part when you look at some of the routes and some of those decisions that those guys made freelancing over out there.
That kind of ties into my next point. So there were some routes where I believe it was Dom Henry just run like a 1 yard in. Was that scheme related in the second half, or was that just what would you call that? Was that something to try to diagnose the opposing defense, or?
I'd have to look at which route you're talking about on a 1 yard in. We had some 3-step slants in for sure, slant patterns. Okay. But a 1 yard in, I'd have to look at the tape and see what he was thinking there, maybe. But no, we had some slant bubble concepts in the RPO world that's gonna pick on their cover 3 that they like to play, and maybe that's the concept you're thinking of.
90 yards of penalties, was that surprising to you? And was FIU doing anything to bait you into those 15-yarders?
No. We just got to be more disciplined. That's the frustrating part. We were really good the first 2 weeks out, and the first one on T. Reed, I don't know if he thought the receiver slid the ball or not when he kind of slung him down late, because that was a weird one. And then the other one late's kind of the normal deal. Someone gets a quick shove in right as the whistle blows, then you retaliate. So we can't retaliate. That's something we talked about all week too, and that's what's frustrating there on the special teams one. But bottom line, we got to play with better techniques. Most of it's holding calls, false starts, that stuff. We got to play with better technique. What we're coaching to do, the holdings, the false starts, all that stuff's going to go away.
It's been a while since the Shula Bowl has gone this way. Graduating classes of FIU students haven't seen it. Is there any message to the fan base to try to stay hopeful going forward?
Yeah, stick with us. It's an early year. We still got 9 more games. Conference play starts in 2 weeks at home in Boca. Stick with us. You know what I mean? We got a good football team. We got great kids. We'll come ready to go here in 2 weeks.
It's seemed like there was a little bit of a kerfuffle there towards the end of the game. Was there any issues at all getting guys off the field?
No, we just, emotions kind of run high there at the end, and our guys were frustrated because we felt like, we let that one slip, and there's a little chatter back and forth, but we got to get our guys off the field, and they're celebrating because they won the game. We got to get our guys off the field, and that's kind of how that went.
Obviously you talk about conference play, so you do have that bye. I know that you've got to look at stuff through the film and kind of evaluate where you got to go from here. But just off the top of your head, is there anything specific you think that the team needs to improve on?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, starts with me and the quarterback. Me and the quarterback got to get on the same page. We've got to play a lot better at that position, and again, that's what I do. And so it starts with me. I gotta really help get me and him back on the same page of kind of where we felt like we were in spring ball and fall camp, and get him to play better. It starts there. We got to get more physical in the trenches. They kicked our tail in the trenches today. They ran it down our throat pretty well, and we weren't able to get the fourth and 6 inches quarterback sneak. We couldn't push them, and so those are some areas where it's going to be a heavy focus this next week.